chosen one, you may think you are healing right now. You may even be telling yourself that you're fixing wounds, recovering from pain, or slowly getting better. But listen carefully, what's happening inside you goes deeper than healing. Healing restores what was damaged. What you're experiencing is not restoration, it is separation. You are not healing, you are detaching from who you used to be. And that's why this phase feels so unfamiliar. Because healing still keeps you connected to the old version of yourself. Detachment does not. Detachment quietly loosens the emotional grip you once had on people, habits, reactions, dreams, and identities that no longer align with who you are becoming. And when that grip loosens, it can feel confusing, empty, even unsettling. You start noticing it in subtle ways. You don't react the same anymore. Things that once triggered you no longer reach you. Conversations that used to drain you now feel distant. You still care, but without attachment. That's not numbness. That's not avoidance. That's evolution. This phase doesn't come with fireworks. It doesn't announce itself. There's no clear moment where you can say, this is when it started. It creeps in quietly, rearranging your inner world while your outer life looks mostly the same. And because nothing dramatic is happening on the surface, you may doubt yourself. You may wonder if you're losing passion, losing depth, or losing direction. But what you're actually losing is identification with the old version of you. The version that needed approval. The version that overexplained. The version that held on too tightly. The version that thought suffering was proof of loyalty. And letting go of that version feels strange because for a long time, that version was your survival strategy. It kept you safe. It helped you adapt. It allowed you to navigate environments that were never meant to hold your full truth. But survival is not the same as alignment. Now, alignment is calling. This is why your emotional responses are changing. You no longer feel the need to defend yourself the way you used to. You no longer feel compelled to prove your worth. You no longer chase closure the same way. And when old patterns try to pull you back, something inside you resists, not aggressively, but firmly. That resistance is not fear, it's self-respect awakening. You're learning that not everything deserves a reaction. Not every feeling deserves a response. Not every relationship deserves access to your energy. And this learning isn't happening intellectually. It's happening at a nervous system level, at a soul level. That's why you can't fully explain it to others. And that's also why some people may not recognize you anymore. They might say you've changed. They might say you're distant. They might say you're cold. But what they're really sensing is that they no longer have the same emotional access to you. The version of you that bent, absorbed, and endured quietly is dissolving. And in its place is someone calmer, clearer, and less available for chaos. Detachment is not apathy. Detachment is clarity without attachment. You still feel deeply, but you no longer drown in emotion. You still care, but you no longer cling. You still love, but you no longer lose yourself. This is the phase where your internal boundaries become stronger than your external explanations. Where you stop negotiating with discomfort just to maintain familiarity. Where you choose peace, even if it means walking alone for a while. And yes, that loneliness can feel heavy, because detachment often comes before replacement. You release the old before the new fully arrives. And in that in-between space, there can be silence. A pause, a feeling of floating without ground. But that pause is intentional. It's where your system recalibrates. You are learning how to exist without the old emotional weight. Weight you carried because you thought it was love. Weight you carried because you thought it was responsibility. Weight you carried because you thought it defined you. Now, as that weight drops, you may feel lighter and strangely empty at the same time. That emptiness is not lack, it's space. Space for a new identity to settle in. Space for new values to form. Space for a life that is not built on reaction, trauma, or obligation. This is also why old goals may no longer excite you. The dreams that once fueled you might now feel irrelevant or hollow. That doesn't mean they were wrong. It means they belong to a version of you that no longer exists. You are outgrowing motivations that were rooted in proving, escaping, or compensating. And growth without a clear destination can feel unsettling. But notice this: even without excitement, there is a quiet steadiness in you now, a groundedness, a sense that you don't need to rush or force clarity. You're allowing things to unfold instead of controlling them. That patience didn't come from nowhere. It came from detachment. You are no longer emotionally fused with outcomes. And that is powerful, because when you detach from who you used to be, you also detach from the fears that controlled that version. Fear of abandonment, fear of being misunderstood, fear of not being enough. Those fears lose their grip when they no longer define your identity. You may still feel them, but they don't drive you. And this is the stage where discernment sharpens. You start noticing energy instead of words, patterns instead of promises, consistency instead of intensity. You no longer chase potential, you respond to reality. That shift alone changes everything. This is why certain environments no longer feel tolerable, why noise drains you faster, why surface-level interactions feel exhausting. Your nervous system is recalibrating to peace. And once it tastes peace, chaos feels louder than before. You are not becoming sensitive, you are becoming selective. Selective with your time, selective with your energy, selective with your emotional investments. And the world doesn't always celebrate that. Because a detached person is harder to manipulate, harder to guilt, harder to control. When you stop being emotionally reactive, you stop being predictable. And predictability is what many systems rely on. But your soul is not here to be predictable. It's here to be aligned. So if you feel like you're standing at a distance from your old life, watching it instead of living inside it, know this: that distance is intentional. You needed perspective, you needed space. You needed to see clearly who you were and who you're no longer meant to be. This is not the end of your emotional depth. This is the beginning of emotional sovereignty. You are learning to choose yourself without aggression, to let go without resentment, to move forward without dragging the past behind you. And that kind of growth doesn't look dramatic. It looks quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. So don't rush this phase. Don't label it as loss. Don't try to fix what isn't broken. You are not healing. You are detaching. And detachment is not withdrawal from life. It's preparation for a life that finally fits. As this detachment deepens, something subtle but powerful begins to happen inside you. You stop fighting the process. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" And instead, a quieter question takes its place. What am I becoming? That shift in questioning changes everything, because now, instead of trying to return to who you were, you're allowing yourself to move toward who you're meant to be. This is where many people misunderstand this phase. They think detachment means you've given up, that you're disconnected from life, that you've lost your fire. But in truth, your fire hasn't gone out, it's moved inward. It's no longer burning to prove something to the world. It's burning to keep you aligned with yourself. You start to feel less urgency, less pressure, less need to rush decisions or force outcomes. And for someone who used to survive by overthinking, overgiving, or overworking, this calm can feel uncomfortable at first, almost suspicious. You might catch yourself thinking, "Why am I not panicking like I used to?" Or "Why doesn't this bother me anymore?" That's because your nervous system is learning safety without chaos. For a long time, intensity felt like aliveness. Struggle felt like meaning. Emotional highs and lows felt like depth. But now, your system is realizing that peace can be just as alive and far more sustainable. You're no longer addicted to emotional storms to feel real. This is a massive shift. And with it comes a quiet grief. Not because something bad happened, but because something familiar is ending. You're grieving the old version of yourself, the one who tried harder, held on longer, and tolerated more than they should have. Even if that version suffered, it was known. And releasing what's known always carries a sense of loss. Let yourself feel that grief without judgment. Grief doesn't always mean you want something back. Sometimes it simply means you're honoring what carried you this far. You're acknowledging the chapters that shaped you without needing to relive them. That honoring is part of healthy detachment. As you continue in this phase, you may notice your intuition becoming sharper. You sense things before they happen. You feel when something is off, even if everything looks fine on the surface. You know when to step back, when to stay quiet, when to move forward without needing external confirmation. That's because detachment clears static. When you're no longer emotionally entangled in outcomes, your perception becomes cleaner. You see people as they are, not as you hope they'll be. You see situations for what they're offering, not what you wish they would become. This clarity can be sobering, sometimes even disappointing, but it's also deeply freeing. You stop romanticizing struggle, you stop justifying misalignment, you stop negotiating with your own inner knowing. And yes, this may lead to more solitude. Not because you're antisocial, but because fewer connections can meet you where you are now. You've changed the frequency. Surface-level interactions feel louder, forced conversations feel heavier, and you no longer want to explain your inner world to people who aren't listening with depth. This solitude is not punishment, it's refinement. It's creating space for relationships that are built on presence, honesty, and mutual respect, not on emotional dependency or shared wounds. And while those relationships may not arrive immediately, this space is necessary for them to exist at all. Another thing that shifts in this phase is how you relate to time. You stop seeing life as a race. You stop measuring yourself against timelines that were never aligned with you. You trust that what's meant for you will meet you when you're ready, not when you're pressured. This trust doesn't come from blind optimism. It comes from self-stability. You've survived enough to know that forcing rarely brings peace. And now, instead of chasing certainty, you're learning to live comfortably inside the unknown. That's not weakness. That's emotional maturity. You are also learning discernment around effort. You no longer give energy just because something demands it. You ask quietly, does this align with me? And if the answer is no, you allow yourself to step back without guilt, without over-explanation. This is where your boundaries become energetic, not verbal. You don't need to announce them. You don't need to defend them. They're simply felt. People will notice this shift. Some will respect it. Some will be confused by it. And some may try to pull you back into old dynamics, not because they want to harm you, but because your detachment disrupts familiar roles. Stay grounded. You are not responsible for maintaining versions of yourself that no longer exist. This phase is also preparing you for responsibility at a higher level. Responsibility that requires clarity, not emotional reactivity. Leadership that requires stability, not validation. Purpose that requires presence, not performance. You are being trained to act from alignment, not urgency. That's why things feel slower right now. That's why momentum feels paused. It's not delay, it's integration. Your inner world is catching up with the growth you've already undergone. And once that integration completes, your actions will carry far more weight, precision, and impact. You won't need to push as hard. You won't need to prove as much. Your presence alone will carry authority. And perhaps the most important thing happening in this phase is this: you're learning to trust yourself. Not the anxious version, not the people-pleasing version, not the reactive version, but the calm, observant, grounded version that knows when to move and when to wait. That trust is priceless, because once you trust yourself, external validation loses its grip. You don't need constant reassurance. You don't need approval to move forward. You don't need permission to evolve. You move when it's right, and you don't when it's not. This is how alignment feels. Quiet, clear, steady. So if today you feel detached, slower, more inward, less reactive, don't rush to label it as loss or stagnation. This is a recalibration phase, a phase where your identity is settling into something more authentic, more sustainable, and more grounded than before. You are not disappearing, you are consolidating. And when this phase completes, you won't return to the old intensity. You'll move forward with intention, with clarity, with boundaries that protect your peace and a presence that speaks louder than words. Detachment was never meant to disconnect you from life. It was meant to reconnect you to yourself. And from that place, everything you build next will be real, aligned, and deeply yours.